I wish I could have done more on the policy side to really kind of level the playing field. But policy is one thing, implementation is also the other half of it. And we struggle on the implementation side. We have an enforcement deficiency. So people are complaining that you're coming in, you're going home, but on the local side, banks aren't working for you. And that's a whole topic we cover the next day. And next day, working, the fact that we put most of our money in two main banks, one in giving construction loan, and one asking you your debt ratio and all that with student loans, factoring in certain things, and then it becomes hard for us. And the process of home ownership is a very difficult process.
Just need a big bag, I'ma get it so fast, I'm so fast. And when I get that money, I'ma make that last. Caribbean currency, we make that money last. We make it last. I just need a big bag, I'ma get it fast, get it fast, get it fast. I just need a big bag, I just need a big bag.
Welcome to another episode of Caribbean Currency, where Caribbean culture meets financial literacy. And today we have a special guest in the building. This was a highly anticipated and long overdue interview. And today we have three-term former senator of the United States Virgin Islands Legislature, an educator, a daughter of the soil, and a voice that speaks against nepotism, corruption, and doing business as usual in the Virgin Islands. And I am pleased and honored to welcome on the Caribbean Currency Podcast none other than Miss Janelle Sarauw.
Don't forget the K.
The K. The K.
Thank you for having me.
My name begins with K, so K is a special letter to me.
Oh, here we go.
Janelle, what's happening?
I'm
Introduce
good.
the co-host.
Oh, shit.
Jesus Christ. We do this every episode.
Every episode, you know. You
Get
think
it
we
done,
get
bro.
together by now, you know.
Yeah, episode
But
39.
large up, my co-host, Mr. Redman, in the building.
There you go.
Impromptu visit to the Virgin Islands. We had to fly down to make this thing happen because we've been playing cops and robbers, cat and mouse. That's what it is. Not cops and robbers.
Not cops and robbers, bro. Cat
We've
and
been
mouse.
playing cat and mouse for a while to make this happen. So, Janelle,
Yes.
pleasure having you.
Thank you.
On the set. How you been?
Relaxing, enjoying life outside of the political arena, jumping back in. But, I've been an academic for the last 4 years.
Okay.
Debating with this nice young man.
How was the hiatus from the political scene?
The water break, it was good. I needed some time to just regroup, finish some personal goals, because I went back to school to finish my doctorate degree.
Right.
My dissertation is titled Democracy Denied, the Democratic Deficit and the Case of the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Got it.
So when we talk about democracy, not only just the lack of voting rights, but overall, and how it impacts identity from a phenomenological standpoint. So that's what I did, and I should be done roughly May, June, which positions me to really re-enter the political arena.
So now you have to say doctor.
Eventually. But I'm still Janelle,
Well, we'll be happy
Titles
to say
don't
doctor,
really-
It's a major accomplishment. You know what I mean? I just got a GED. Kyle, you got a GED too.
No, I graduated, big man.
Still the same as a GED though.
I barely passed, but I graduated.
But it's still the same as a GED.
Yeah, you hold the same weight, right?
Right.
You're right.
Yeah, we're good.
You're right.
We're good. Before we get into the political stuff, there's many people, as you know, the Virgin Islands is a very diverse community. People are coming in and out all the time. So there's people that don't really know your story.
Mm-hmm.
So we really kind of want to start from the beginning. Your foundation. We know you have a strong relationship with both your parents. They influence you greatly. Can you just take us through where your parents are from, how you came up?
Well, my dad is from Frederickstead, St. Croix. And then somewhere along the way, ended up migrating to St. Thomas with his mom.
Right.
And grew up in Pearson Garden. So, Ghetto's massive.
Ghetto's massive. Large up yourself. They're going to say,
Yeah,
there's another Ghetto's reunion.
There's another Ghetto's reunion. We don't make the rules here.
No, Berlin 8.
Okay.
And then my grandmother moved to Berlin 27. So I
Nice.
spent every day after school in Ghettos. Even
Okay.
now when I have to go for the mail.
Yeah.
Right.
What keeps our family together, we share one PO box.
Nice.
So you're forced to talk to your family because you have to call an aunt to find out who got the mail and
Right.
where to find the mail and which cousin have the mail.
Yeah.
So I still return to my father called it, he said he from ghetto, he's from Person Garden. So I returned there a lot. Actually, my first campaign kick off when I ran for Senate, the first time was actually in Person Garden.
Nice.
So my father was the former administrator to Governor King. He's a Vietnam War vet. Let's start there.
Yeah.
And then he was administrator to Governor King, founder of the ICM party, and then administrator to Governor Snyder. And so I had that political influence on that side. And my mom is from St. Kitts. My grandmother has division roots. My grandfather is from Sandy Point. My mom is from Kenya and St. Kitts. So my grandfather served as the chief public health inspector at the time when they had a massive sinking of the MV Christina ship, counting the bodies. He also was a founder of the political action movement, the People's Action Movement Party in St. Kitts that led St. Kitts to independence on September 1983. And he's the longest serving Speaker of the House in St. Kitts. And then, of course, by the Queen Elizabeth, he was given the title Command of the British Empire, CBE. And he was sent to different newly independent African nations to train their parliament. So I had that political upbringing on that side. So he was actually my first world history teacher. My first lesson from him was actually why the Federation of St. Kitts fell apart with Anguilla and what happened there. And I actually lived in St. Kitts after Hurricane Marilyn.
Nice.
My mom sent us there. We didn't have any school. She's a principal. And she decided we need to be in school. So I attended the Dr. William Connor Primary School, the village school. Walked to the graveyard every day. I was in the Girls Brigade. And so St. Kitts, I understand my place within the region. And unlike others, I don't deny my identity. I don't believe that being pro-Virginians doesn't mean that I'm anti-Caribbean or or any Eastern Caribbean nation. And the same applies to St. Kitts, right? I actually have dual citizenship, as a matter of fact, between the two. So check out Music Fest when you have a chance.
Okay, just tell them you have dual citizenship too. That's your cue.
I get my Belangos card from Tatola.
Correct.
And ever since I got my Belangos card, customs will hold me every time I go to the airport, but that's a story for another day.
I figure out who you is.
I have the same relations to it. They call it for a second check. And I'm like,
I'm like, come on, but
we gotta make sure you guys are loyal. Okay, so we gotta check it out.
So that's my upbringing. My mom is she came here, attended UVI, met my dad. The rest is history. Taught biology in Concord with Aspinall at the time. Then became chairperson and then assistant principal at Darken for years. And then principal of Alamala, principal of Dover, principal of Lockout, and now she retired and is a principal of St. in school. And my dad is just a retired sweet little old man.
Did you feel like a lot of with all of that? Right? There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of education there. There's a lot of political weight in your family at a young age. Did you feel, as being a girl child, a lot of pressure to excel? Because you excelled. Was that because of under pressure, or was that because of just your makeup?
One would probably be my natural selection, my makeup. And two, my house is a free home. Contrary to popular, my mother looks strict, My dad is very stern, but anything I wanted to do, if I wanted to go fly in a rocket or something, become an astronaut, my father said, okay, well, what we have to do? My mother would, so she honed those skills. So anything that my brother and I
was just going to say, you're not the only child.
Lev is quite talented as well. We have different paths. But whatever we wanted to do, our house, my mom always encouraged free thought, free thinking. And so did my dad. With my dad, I would have all these opinions. He'd tell me, damn it to hell, Janelle, come back and tell me the facts. So I had to come back and find my reasoning. So it wasn't like I speak and you listen and do as I say. I was allowed to challenge the thought process of my parents. We were allowed to go against the grain. And then there's my father, at that time where people were like, oh, you're a Garrett and you're from Dung Island, my father allowed us to embrace the Eastern Caribbean side. So if school on a Friday, we are late Saturday morning, headed to St. Kitts. So we were able to also really embrace, and it was different sides because we grew up very fortunate. Upper middle class in Bodo. But then when you go to St. Kitts and your cousins don't really have any clothes and shoes, so you're taking on your hand-me-downs and, there's a sense of just humility.
Right.
You know, taking on toilet paper and fruits because the cost of living is higher there than what it is here. And even with my father we never forgot our roots. He tell you, you're going by your grandmother in you know,
Right.
you're going by ma.
My ma.
And that's just what it was. So that upbringing allowed me to actually be empathetic to people that probably don't have as much as I do. So, you know, if I play the saxophone, did Mukujumbi, Kowak and Sticks, been in Rising Stars, an honor student, all of that environment was cultivated, not only by my parents, but the village. My parents did a very good job in picking our godparents as well.
Right.
And that's important. I mean, I don't have any kids, but I know what my village did for me. So I am actually a product of the village.
That's dope. So in them all the years, I felt like you excel at everything. Sports, music, pageantry.
Yeah, you notice she didn't say she was a pageant girl.
Yeah.
She lead up her adult.
She don't want us to. We're going to put the picture now. We got the picture.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay,
right?
that
Insert picture
is
here.
going to get viral again.
Exactly.
Okay, and Trick's going to have a very good time with it. But in all of that, when did you first realize, like, politics was where you're going? Because you could have been anything.
I understood politics very young. I was immersed in it, right?
Right.
My dad would go campaigning. I didn't know what he was doing, you know. I just used to see him put on Governor Snyder little hat, and he would go campaigning. And I remember getting in the car, and then he would be on his speaker talking, and I said, "Let me talk. Let me say something." And he'd drive in the bushes when campaigning is over, and he hand me the mic, and it's just me, the crickets, the rats, the iguanas having a full conversation.
Yeah.
And I would be going to town, and I would be making these random promises. And he said, "No, Janelle, you can't promise people that, you know."
Yeah.
So I was actually looking back at it now, I can reflect on it. I was actually a student of his for a very, very long time. I didn't know I was going to do politics, but maybe, and you know, the things that I did, because I was class president in the class of 2003. And then in college, I started off as an engineering major.
Right.
Went from music to engineering. And then after a while, I was like, I don't want to find the unknown.
Yeah.
So I was in a lab one day, and I'm like, I need to talk to people. Like, just trying to figure out these things with myself. And my lab partner really working, right?
Yeah.
And I was on a full scholarship too as well. So I remember going to each athletic team has their own academic advisor.
Right.
You know, athletes are given a high level of treatment.
Right.
So I went to Dr. Brown and I said, I don't know about this engineering. So she said, go take a test in the career center. And they said I needed to find a job to interact with people.
Right.
So that semester I had all these like math and science classes. And then there was one elective. It was called Politics of Arab Nationalism with Dr. Robert Rabil. And he come in the classroom with his heavy Middle Eastern accent. And he stood up on it, he's like, hear ye, and he started talking about the Umayyad dynasty and the Abbasids and the House of Baghdad.
Yeah.
And I lost the shit. Just lost. And I'm like, what is he talking about? But he piqued my interest.
Yeah.
So by the time that semester finished, I was like, I want to study political science.
Right.
And I wanted to focus on Middle Eastern politics. So my concentration on my transcript on my degree says a concentration on global governance, Middle Eastern studies. Right. Because I wanted to, in my good brain at the time, wanted to become the Secretary of State and actually travel and broker peace in the Middle East. So really, and so that was a deciding moment for me. I was always immersed in it. The VI politics was not even on my radar, to be honest. And I spent the duration of my academic career, BA and Masters, understanding the British Mandate, the Balfour Declaration, the ongoing fight between the Palestinians and the Jews, and you know why Afghanistan was invaded first by the Soviet Union and the Cold War, and how did we get to where we are today, from the dynasties to the caliphate to the three major religions, and that's really my concentration. I could give you a whole international relations class on that.
So when did it switch from studying about Middle Eastern politics and all of that stuff towards home? What happened there that initiated that switch to come back home? Because I know you came back home as an educator, right? So talk a little bit about the switch from your focus on global politics and also this local politics.
My lived experiences of most of the people that are in politics. I'm one of the few that actually understands. I'm a product of the public education system, right? Guatemala, Conquering, CHS. I understand what it means to play in substandard athletic facilities, having come back and taught. I know what it means to be in a classroom that's really, really hot, and students are, the seating arrangement in a classroom is not by, the quote-unquote bad kids in the back, and you want to bring them to the front. You sit in a classroom at CHS at the time, based on what the fan is. So they're fighting for the fan. So you're buying fans, and you're trying to run wires across the room so they could literally be cool. I understood what it meant to coach a volleyball team and you don't have uniforms. So you understand, we were trying to sell water. We had a nonprofit called Sky High Volleyball Club that were traveling. Just the level of the lack of resources. But there was a stark contrast when I thought of there's a lack of resources, but you have all this federal money. And we're struggling to spend the consolidated grant awards at the time, the Title V funding, Title IX, and the rest of the titles. And I'm like, what is happening? And then, of course, I dance in the hotels every Thursday at Sugar Bay, every Saturday at Coco Joe's. I'm Jamaica. I was Jamaica.
Okay, so like Mokojumbi dancing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before we dance, my chief of staff, Simone Edwards Williams, now she's married. Simone would be Island Passion, and they would come on before me. They would do the limbo and walk on the glass, and Camille and the rest of them. And I remember before we performed, we just started bitching about the government. And we started fussing, and I'm like, why this country and why that country? And one of the people was like, I am a student of Dr. King. And he says, I can never be what I am out to be unless you're what you are to be. And you can be what you are to be because I'm what I ought to be, the mutual garment of destiny. And that's rooted in Gandhi, when Gandhi's telling you be the change that you want to see. So eventually I was like, let me be that change. And then the Forward Movement team was born. I was millennials. We didn't know where we were going, how we were going to do this thing. We had no money. Nobody believed in us. They felt like we were too radical. Sauraw on the internet cussing people off. And eventually, and that's what we're struggling right now, right? So people were really, and then we had to, and then of course my orientation was one, and I got locks and I have tattoos. So we had all these obstacles. And then I realized, let's focus on the bread and butter issues. This is like thread in the fabric, right? But this is a fabric. And if I start talking about infrastructure and WAPA and energy and just overall healthcare and, just the basic needs, people were able to buy into that process. And then from there we became successful. So that's where I was born.
You always seem to be seeking out these uphill challenges in life. Why?
I wouldn't say I'm seeking it, but
there's an easy road for you.
Yeah,
easier road for you. But you seem to find yourself in these positions where you're either fighting the establishment, fighting the status quo, right? Everything that you represent goes against what we know generationally, but you still find yourself in the front of it, charging. Like, where that makeup come from?
I think I come from the foundation because for my grandfather and his friends at that time on a very colonial system, the British system, the Commonwealth, or the Empire at the time, to decide, okay, we're going to form a political party and then we're going to petition the crown for independence. That's against the status quo. Then my dad is from Frederiksted, which is Freedom City. That's where we were emancipated. The fireburn happened as well in 1878. So my history is not lost on me. And then I grew up in a house and my dad would play Dr. King like it's music. And he would recite every Dr. King speech. But eventually, I recite them as well. And I recite them because they were words to me. But eventually, the words had some weight. So when I look at Dr. King, and I was just so immersed in change. And then my mom, as a teacher, never allowed, it wasn't okay for a kid to fail. My brother and I would call the house a halfway house because mom would come with a student and say, make some room. And we were like, who the hell is this? And she said, you just go sleep with your brother and give up your bedroom. And I'd be like, who is this bossing? And and they would end up living with us for a few till she get them back on track. Or if we go someplace, you see her buying extra fabric to make our uniform for that child. So there was always this need, or I was immersed in an environment where change was always, or going against the status quo or wanting to do better was always the thing. So it's not unorthodox for me to be like, listen, we have a problem here, and this is the solution. And then, I grew up in a house too where I was allowed to challenge the system. My father used to have some very unfair rules. And I remember one time he beat my brother for something. Oh, he asked everyone, he had cut class in Kankra in a day. And my father left the administrator's office in Government House and went and slapped the boy down in school, right? So I get mad. I thought I was younger than 11. I thought I was his attorney. So I got in the house. I said, Daddy, you asked them a question. I said, Janelle, I don't want to hear nothing from you. I gave a directive. Your mother sent you to harass me. I said, no, Daddy. So I stopped and I said, Daddy, well, you ask him, why he cut class and why he do what he do. And he gave me an honest answer. He said, I don't like school. And you lick him down. So I don't think that was the right solution. And my father sat and we were able to reason. So from that age, I knew that it was okay to question, what I thought would be an injustice. And it just is natural for me. So when I ask the uncomfortable question, that's like breathing for me. I don't lose any sleep asking that.
It says a lot about your dad to create that safe space for you to even challenge the status quo, challenge his decision, especially after you see what was happening to your brother. So that takes a level of bravery on your end, and then us. So it's a healthy balance, is what I hearing. That's like, how far to push when it comes to pops.
Mommy would support it too. She'll swing, man. She's like, So the environment was always safe.
When you first get into the Senate race, I could remember, I always say, when people see change coming, they become nasty, right? So it became nasty for you, right? It's a lot of slander, innuendos or skeletons coming out the closet, or people have everything to say. Some you handle well, some you didn't handle well. What was that like at a time, being fresh into politics? Because we have, when I was young and I started getting into politics, I had this naive thing, like it was going to be fair, and you're smart and I'm smart, and we're going to have these civil discussions even if we disagree. And quickly I found out
that's not the case.
That's not the case, because as soon as you begin to show some type of intelligence,
you're a threat.
Then they're going to start to tear you at the other part of the fabric. So take us through how that felt in the beginning, and then how you evolved into just being able to leave it roll off your back and continue to serve the people.
Initially, it was hurtful.
Right.
It was hurtful, but the power of therapy, we don't talk about mental health. Well, going to therapy was definitely a blessing. Still in therapy, every Tuesday at 4 p.m. That would be one. Two was my village always let me know that I'm enough.
Right.
Even my campaign team, when they would come with stuff like Sauraw is a lesbian, my chief of staff is like, tell me something I don't know. So I was always very insulated and protected by a system of love. Two, having a sense of identity, a strong sense of identity, because I had that level of identity and I'm comfortable in myself. I have this philosophy that I belong in a room. And you can't, the room isn't complete until I'm at that table. And if you don't have a space, then I'll bring a chair. And I'll pull this chair up because I bring value to the room. So my capacity and my competency, I used to shy away from my intellectual side, because I didn't want to appear like I knew it all and I was a super smart girl. But I understood it meant to walk in my purpose. So for me, I was able to navigate those spaces, even as the only independent senator in an all Democratic majority, chairing the most powerful committees at the time. My colleagues recognize that I do belong in that space. Because I look at other people that they were trying to catapult into those positions, and you want to put people into positions that don't really understand politics, no formal education in it, no crash course in it, just by favor. And for me, my entire life was in favor. When I went to school on a full scholarship for volleyball, I had to learn to work hard, I had to show up to practice. Preseason was about 4 a day. We had conditioning from 4 to 5, weightlifting from 6 to 7. We were on the courts from 9 to 11, 2 to 4, and 6 to 9 for a whole month. Right. So I know what it means to show up and to work and to maintain my starting position. Right. I know what it means even when I got into office. Nothing was handed to me. None of my successes were either I spend time in a room, and because I have a proximity to power, that means that I'm going to take this position I call association. Right? It's what you do with the proximity to power. Right. So nothing was ever in his life handed to me. Even when I got home, my dad, of course, has status in the Virgin Islands, and I wanted a job. He told me education hiring. And I went and I picked up a packet this big. It was this old packet. I had to write all these things in. And I had to apply for the job. I had to sit and get interviewed. Never mind, my mother is an educator, you know, and she knew everybody in education. At the time, the HR is her close friend. She on the phone with the lady every night. But I didn't get any special treatment for nothing. And even in my political career, as you saw in my first time, I had to fight Kevin Rodriguez on a whole court case. And I had to fight all these constant uphill battles. But I know that my dad would always tell me that people don't go after a barren tree. So when the attacks are becoming intensified, I know that I'm doing something right. And my parents would tell me, if you want to be like, go sell ice cream. Right. And so.
How was that first term as far as like finding your voice? Because I want to say that it was very early on. The clips them started to come out with you just going belt to ass on the Senate floor. Did you feel like you had to establish yourself, or was just your passion for the issues?
My passion guided me, nobody else. Right. I would look at a paper and, you know, we downplay the power of an education, but educations are always formal. It's established. So even if you go to trade school, if you go to a certification class, whatever, there must be a level of education, formal or informal, whether it's self-education, you read about it from a trusted source, a reliable source. So for me coming into the Senate, I tell people all the time, I'm a horrible politician. I'm a political scientist. Right. So the advantage I had over some of my colleagues was the fact that if I read a legislation, I would understand that if a word is capitalized and it's lowercase, I know the difference between the two. I understood the difference between a clause beginning with notwithstanding. If it starts with notwithstanding, I know that you're canceling out the rest of the whole bill. Right. Because you're notwithstanding section 6B, 6C of Title 17, subsection 64. Right. And people would just think that, it's just notwithstanding, but notwithstanding carries a very, very powerful weight. Right. So for me, when I got in the Senate, I would look at our budget and I would say, Lord, the budget numbers here, and there. And that carried me through, and it made people uncomfortable because my capacity was very, very high. And as you know, I was silent all the more, like Valentine crying, you know, so that actually helped me. My education, where I struggled with now, was being politically correct. Right. You know, I wasn't as polished then as I am now. My father said, "Lad, you can't say them kind of things." And Senator Bialy would come and say, "Janelle, I said, but it's dumb. It's just dumb." And he said, "Well, you can't say that." And I'm like, "You said a man thief that money?" And he'd be like, "You can't say that, Janelle." And I'd be like, "Well, is he thieving, right?" And so I was able very early on to see things. And it's funny because even in my last term, not to bring it up, but I was actually, when I started to look at the ARPA funding, and the direction for the ARPA funding, I recognized very early on that we had a problem.
What's that for the folks that don't know? What's the...
So break that down.
The American Rescue Plan. So we got all this money from COVID. You had CARES Act 1 money. I remember I tried to commit on disaster recovery and infrastructure. And technically those funds fell under my purview because it was a declared disaster. Right. So you had CARES Act 1 funding, CARES Act 2 funding, you had Infrastructure and Jobs Act, you had the American Rescue Plan Act. And when I saw the American Rescue Plan Act was in layman's terms, to rescue the territory, the economy, right? So you see BCB, for example, like kids leaving school early because mole, and those funds were sent for a reason and we misused them. And when I started to look at, I said, well, give me I will call over because, you know, I don't stress out Governor Bryan at this point, so nobody wants to talk to me. So I called my friends and I said, send me the financial statements, let me see where this money going. And I started to see money being funneled in one direction to a particular company. And I was like, Jesus Christ, we got a problem. And I called to PMP, it says an executed contract for this company. And then they was like, who is this company? So we were paying a company that wasn't really registered, no contract, violation of the procurement laws, and I saw the direction those funds were headed. And very early on, even before the elections began, I called it. And I started to fuss with David Whitaker. And I became a problem for him.
Right.
Then I see USBI News pop up on Facebook. He created a news company. And the only person he writes about is Janelle. But we didn't know who he was. But I knew he was David Whitaker.
Right.
And I started to Google him, and I was like, the journalist is in business with a bad man. And I started to go back and forth, and then I became enemy of the state, persona non grata, right? And then I started to talk to two commissioners in particular, and I said, this ain't right. And today, sadly, you see the indictments, the guilty verdicts. I don't rejoice in it, but we held them accountable. The justice system held them accountable. I don't rejoice in it, but it could have been prevented. But it's always, going back to your point, the problem was a messenger. And, but if I'm going to talk, I have the receipts. Because early on, back to my foundation, my dad would say, I don't want your opinion, tell me the facts.
Tell me the facts.
So I've always learned to speak. And I think I'd have been a good lawyer if I really thought about being a...
When you decide to, especially with that particular instance, and you go down that road of discovery and trying to enlighten the public or even your colleagues, was there any little bit of fear of a hidden power, and not to say that the power is like an established power, but just a hidden mindset of, I'm going to receive the type of backlash to kind of, in hopes that it quiets you down? Were you at that juncture where you're like, maybe I shouldn't do this, or, oh, well, it got to be done. Whatever happens, however they feel about me, they feel about me.
Because as you're going down that rabbit hole, you're going to stumble across some stuff that's going to be like, what do I do with this? And then the person that you are at heart and at your core can't sit with it. So you have to have that conversation with yourself, like, listen, when I make noise about this is what's to come, or what could come.
There's an early video me editing on YouTube where my hair ain't combed, and my first campaign video. And it's about 5 minutes long, and I end by saying, Nelson Mandela, I love Nelson Mandela. And he stood in court before he was sentenced, and he said, the freedom of South Africa is a cause for which I'm prepared to die. And I said that in my first video. And at that time, I thought I was going to die. I thought I'd be taken out. It became, my phone was tapped. And I knew it was tapped. Because when I make a phone call, I didn't. And I was like, I said, Simone, I think my phone was being tapped. And we were trying to find a campaign headquarters. We couldn't find a headquarters because before we could even get to our campaign headquarters, they already knew we were coming. So the Brian Roach team, just full disclosure, knew our every step before we took that step. And I said it to the team. Then we had some threats. So when things were happening and I started to really hone in on David Whitaker, one of the detectives in the VIPD came to my house to warn me to stand down, right? And then I ended up with a stalker. So we had a whole stalking situation, and it got really bad. He would infiltrate the legislature. One morning I came to work, he was in my office. He stood outside the legislature one day and told me he gonna put me in the grave, like, I'll be actually over there. And I was like, who sent this boy for me? And it became very intense. He would pull up as I would, I live down this way. As I passed UVI, he would wait for me in the mornings and he would follow me. And then at that point, some detectives got involved. And then I remember one day calling Ray Martinez. And I said, I'm going to die. And he said, at this point now, I have declared my candidacy. I need protection by the law. You're allowed to have protection. And I've never been one to, I don't want the hoopla and the security and all that. So I always felt very free in my home. And I remember just about to tears, my father stressed out. My mom, she's very stoic. But when you see have a level of emotion, then you know we have a problem. And I remember calling Ray and I was like, Ray, I think I'm going to get killed. I said, I need some protection. I need some help. I need something to, And Ray dragged his feet. And him and her. And then that day, I remember going to St. Croix for our campaign event. And the young man, they went to solving papers from the court. And he opened fire on the VIPD. And then he ended up in this bush chase with him and the marshals. He's in prison now. And that could have been me.
Right.
And things got really intense. And then the attacks became worse. And of course, when the case came out, David said that he had the grey key and that Ray Martinez gave him a detective's laptop. And his first assignment was to investigate me. So it all came to light now, but then it was very difficult. But I had a sense of peace that, saving the Virgin Islands is a cause for which I'm prepared to die. And I mean it with every inch of my being.
Well, that's...
We don't ever want it to. It's unfortunate that service in a space that's so small that we are connected to the possibility of it even coming to something like that. It's extremely unfortunate. And you mentioned Ray Martinez. That's the same Ray Martinez who they just found guilty recently for the same association with the same David Whitaker person that we're talking about, right? And it just goes to show the uphill battle that progressives have in this territory, where not only that you're young, you're a female, right? You have those things. And the sad part is we say we want youth in these positions, but then when the youth take up these positions and try to implement change, this is a fight that we have.
And the fight is not only isolated to me, If we, as a student of history, we can start with Jesus, And then, but every generation will have their leader. After Moses came Joshua, after Elisha came Elijah, after David came Solomon. So every generation will have their leader. Dr. King was taking out early Malcolm X. When early Mandela, I would say he was taken out because we took a huge portion of his life. By the time he left prison in his 20s, he was an old man, right? Then if you look at our historical movements from the beginning of time to now, there's always a resistance to change. Like Harriet Tubman will tell you that if some of the slaves they didn't want freedom, So for me, I understand that any movement that I embark upon is going to always have a level of resistance.
Your parents,
but right? When we look at it from a global perspective, or even just an American perspective, as Afro-Caribbean people, we often see things from a black and white perspective, like the establishment is against us, right? The power structure is against us. I think what makes it difficult for me to grasp everything that you're saying, and when I say grasp, it's we against we, right? Not grasp as it didn't happen, but like, wow. So we have a problem with them against us, but now here in the territory where we're the power structure,
we against we.
We get to the point where we having people start threatened, feeling unsafe.
But that comes from a place of colonialism too, and we could define that because remember now we were first, when we were purchased for geopolitical reasons to protect the Panama Canal, we had naval governors.
Right.
Then the first civilian governor is Parlin Pearson. Then we had our first elected governor in 1970. We were a very young democracy.
Right.
So if America can't get it right, I'm not talking about the recent events. Over time, the greatest sin in America is the Native American removal and African slavery, chattel slavery. So if you have all these existing countries that have been around for a long time and they have their issues, we're not any different. And then when you look at it too, we come from a place where our elders, my dad is the generation that just start to vote. Remember, they elected Melvin Evans, and then Cyril King is the second elected governor, then Wang Louis. But that generation finally had a chance to govern themselves after years, right? So when they finally get a chance to hold on to get a level of power, they're going to hold on to it by any means. So I understand the why, where it comes from. So the Democratic Party finally was able to get a charter, and they had this relationship with the Democratic Party of the States, because at the time, 1964, the Civil Rights Act passed, 65, the Voting Rights Act. You talking about the wave of the Dr. King era, Because in 1970, as 5 years later, you know, Kennedy gets assassinated, and there's this still movement of Black Power. The Black Panthers come to, you know, they're rising, and you have all these movements happening, and the Virgin Islands was no different. You had Edward Wilmer Blyden, who influenced Marcus Garvey. So our local Black population is like, hey, you know, I align with the Democratic Party, and they've held on to this power. And for so long now, they've always been in power. And then we come along now, and because of globalization, we have access to information through our phones. You have the TikToks, and we're saying, nah, this ain't make. I mean, I knew you did it this way for so long. When we come to challenge the system, and then people struggle with trying to release power and to pass the mantle. And that's what you see right now. So when you see we against we, it's because you have a colonial perspective of, listen, I've never had power before. Now I finally get power, and you want to take power from me? Now you got to go.
This is why you have the suit with a pin, and I have the lacquer shirt. Because you're such an apologist. Like you,
I understand
some
why.
way, shape, or form, figured out how to blame it on the colonizers.
No, I blame it on the colonizers.
Yeah, you did.
But we're at fault.
And I understand what you're saying, right? And it makes sense. So don't think that what you're saying to me doesn't have any truth to it.
But this is the same time we have to acknowledge the disease. And but when we acknowledge the disease, then we're able to make change. But we want to acknowledge anything in the process.
There is a lot of people in the Virgin Islands that don't have any power, that when you were expressing how you felt unsafe, how you felt marginalized, those who were also marginalized in some way, shape, or form, didn't come to your defense. So I could understand the power structure not wanting to give up power and having remnants of colonialism attached to that, wanting to have power, but the people.
But the remnants of colonialism also is the fact that we are a poor society. If we go, this is the credit man here.
Exactly.
When you look at the median income of the Virgin Islands, when you look at the amount of people that are on government assistance, when you look at the amount of, every time we have to build a new housing community or anything, it's always built with low income tax credits. We never build like middle income housing because we appeal, the data shows that this is a segment of society that need the most help, right?
Right.
So when we build in Loving Land and Megan's Junction, they all build low income tax credits, Harrigan Housing coming along, all these things. I said to say that they don't understand marginalization and the discrimination I facing because they care about their tax checks. Right? So when you're in a certain level of society, when you really don't have it and you're depending on that tax check and on income credit, right, which is temporary right now, to come through, do you think you really understand my marginalization and the fact that I've been discriminated against? So we have to go and talk about, we could always, actually probably want to segue into the economy.
We
segue.
But
because
that adds to it.
Those same people that you're defending again, because you're an apologist and you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I get it, they would have an abstract view of stuff that are happening in America. So they understand it there.
Okay.
But here, when it happening in front of their face with one of their own, all of a sudden is, oh, we don't understand it. I just care about my tax check. But if it happened to Acosta or the girl from Texas, then they, what's her name?
Jasmine.
Yeah, I'm not going to say
it.
But they understand how to write the longest stuff or have the biggest expression about what she's going through and how the establishment is against her as a woman, as a black woman, as a liberal. But when Janelle is saying it from her post, all of a sudden, you don't understand. All of a sudden, the same sentiments that is applicable to you, that is like her, because you're in the same arena as them.
Isn't that human nature? We're always quick to look at the outside wall, but we never reflect on ourselves. That's what you're really describing, the fact that the Virgin Islanders are very quick to analyze and synthesize national issues, but
locally...
Is that
colonialism? Is that a colonialism thing?
I wouldn't. I just think that's the nature of man sometimes. If you read Animal Farm in 1984, that's just the nature of man. People, yes. I wouldn't. And you find that anyway, you never king or queen in your own home. Who killed Jesus? Ain't the Jews? He went a Jew?
I just feel like we have an opportunity here outside of every place in the world as a predominantly minority-run country
To do better.
to use the resources of the empire to show the rest of the Caribbean or the marginalized world how it should be done.
We feel like that.
And we're failing miserably. And a highlight of that is that someone's sitting in your office when you come in, someone's following you from Bodo when you're going to work. You're asking the police commissioner for security and he's dragging his feet. But you want everyone else to get the message to protect women, protect black people.
Look at the culture right now. Every time you look at a consortium, you see, and it ain't even only like women or men, just the level of domestic issues that you have. And the jokes that we crack about it, you know, the lack of sensitivity. We've become so desensitized to that. And I'm just like, what direction are we going in?
That's what makes me so antagonistic, you know. It's because I know...
The selective outrage.
Yes. So I'm going to outrage you. Because we have a unique ability in the world more than most people. We, not Puerto Rico, not Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, have a unique ability in the world to show the world something, and we refuse to do it. We don't want to look in the mirror. We want to point the fingers, and we want to be hypocrites.
We also struggle with capacity issues too, you know. And I learned in the Senate, you have so many vacancies, of course. Many of them could be filled. But the salary is way too low. One, and two, when you look at the people that used to come before me, I'm making $85,000, and I'm talking to a commissioner making 6 figures, driving a government car, 2 phones. I got 1 phone driving my car, $85,000, no sick leave, no annual leave. And I questioning these highly paid officials, and I'm like, where you went to school again? You know, and the level of political favors is troublesome. So when you look at capacity as well, for example, at one point, I'm not Governor Turnbull, you had a director of personnel who just happened to campaign for Governor Turnbull. He wasn't qualified to be a director of personnel, right? Today he sits as the deputy chief of staff for the governor. Still no education in anything. But that's been the culture of government. You campaign for me and I get a highly paid job. So when we're going back to what we can't stop, this and that, you know, a lot of our government is not based on merit. And like I say, education isn't always a degree per se, but some level of it could be formal or informal. Like I don't expect a fisherman to have a degree, but he has an education, a fisherman, some of the best weathermen, and they know what parts of the ocean to go to, high tide, low tide, you know. So we struggle with capacity issues because of this. We've always cut corners. We just keep cutting corners.
Okay, so you said something that resonated with me. These people care more about the tax check than what's really going on and the real issues. And as long as the people in power keep catering to them people and dangling tax check and fancy this is what I'm saying. How do we implement the change that we need?
You see throughout the Caribbean too, and it's the talented 10. The talented 10, we have a duty as people who are highly intellectual to set a different course. I remember, perfect example, when I started to speak, and I would have to go to different engagements. This is, you know, Senator Sarauw, you have to change your words, change your vocabulary. And I thought about Dr. King, because when he gave his I Have a Dream speech, he talked about the governor of Alabama with his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. When Dr. King spoke, he never tell you had to find the dictionary, the thesaurus to figure out what he was saying or use context clues. And I find so often that as leaders, one, we try to dumb it down the way that we talk to the population. And it's funny because in my house, my mom never spoke to us normal. My mother would tell me to please be cognizant of that, or she's highly perturbed. And so my vocabulary, I had to meet her.
Yes. And
I feel one as leaders, we don't, that's just an example, we don't do a good job of elevating the discourse.
Yes.
We lower the level, like as a particular senator, take housing. And they will come and say, sorry, you know, I like so-and-so because it's housing, and for years they moved me from this building to that building, and they fixed my faucet, and that was a sign of accomplishment. And in my mind, I'm like, if I'm the housing senator, I want to move you from public housing to a single family home, and the generation after you should be able to go to purchase a piece of land, and that's the trajectory, upward mobility. But because we pander to the economic status and the education status of our people, I dangle a tax check, or I give you free bread and cheese, or I give you a gas coupon, and you see it. That was the last tactic for the election. It was gas coupons, tax check. I talk about how we're going to save WAPA, and you telling me about the man giving me gas coupons and tax checks. So
and then complain to me when the power output 2 days after
45 hours.
Come on, electricity with your gas coupon.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you look at it, I'm going to say we, because I am part of the leadership as well. We campaign, we overpromise and we underdeliver, and then we literally just pander to these very trivial issues. Instead of saying, okay, well, you here, but how do we elevate you here? And we don't do a good job of that.
I have an issue, right? Because with the same thing that you're talking about, people don't really understand the level of responsibilities of our government officials and the capacity, like you said, what they can and can't do. So they don't run off of the emotions and tell them, listen, you vote for me, your life will get easier. So, no, okay, well, I'm going to vote for this person. And then you vote for that person, thinking your life will get easier, and it don't get easier. And then you're angry all over again, and then the next person come whispering sweet nothings in your ear, telling you, vote for me, and your life will get easier. You vote for them, and it's just it's a cycle, right? How do we break that chain to help these people understand what the roles and responsibilities of these politicians are, so that, no, they can't be duped into thinking when a man say, listen, if you vote for me, I going to raise minimum wage to $30 an hour. Wow, that sounds good. I could be making $30 an hour working Wendy's. And then now we fooled into thinking that this person could do what he actually saying he could do, and he can't really do.
I think it's a collective effort. What we're doing right here is a perfect example of how we make that change, right? We have people that are influential, because we look at government as only leaders. We are the government.
Yes.
So it's imperative that we use our platforms in a responsible manner. So those are you know.
Job,
No.
That was a job, don't jam it. Which part?
Stick that one in.
Responsible man.
I'm just saying, you know, like when we talk sometimes, like I will start radio host say, yeah, Senator so and so, he fixed my road. And I could be like, the Commissioner of Public Works, you know, like, and I always make a reference to you go to the cardiologist and tell a man that your wisdom teeth need to come out.
Exactly.
You know, we keep our anger so misplaced, and we ride on people's emotions. We don't really educate. So if you look at the posts I make on Facebook, I always try to educate, and if I get a position, I can just start posting receipts and terrorize people in the process. But using your platform in a sensible, responsible manner also helps. And it's not only incumbent on officials. I take time to educate because I was a teacher. But realistically, in the demands of being a senator, you suddenly don't have the time. When you're getting called, hey, there, and then you gotta go to these, and you remember, we are like state senators. We don't only represent St. Thomas, St. John. I have to go to St. Croix to make a decision. We have, meetings over there, meetings there. I go to the states, come back. It's kind of hard to do the education, but that's where your education system come in as well too. We shouldn't teach civics separately. Civics should actually be a part embedded within the courses. So you talk about like Caribbean history, for example. You want to talk about the Wave of Independence and how these islands gained their independence. What are their political structures? They have a parliamentary type system where the legislative and the executive branches are merged, meaning the Prime Minister comes down in the House of Commons or the House of Lords in the Parliament to go debate with the opposition. In our system of government, we have 3 separate branches where you will never find a governor coming down in the legislature to come argue with us, right? So in talking about history, when you have U.S. history, for example, required to graduate, when you get to this section of, okay, the nation is formed, the American Revolutionary War has happened, Paul Revere and the Midnight Riders occurred, and then a new nation has to be formed. There's the Articles of Confederation that didn't work out because we didn't know how to count the issue of slaves. Right? And I agree with the Three-Phase Compromise, by the way, because we're saying, okay, the biggest issue was the Three-Phase Compromise. So in talking about how is our government structured, the fact that the South had so many black people, so many slaves, and the House of Reps is counted by population. The North is like, listen, if we give you, if we go by population, you are going to outnumber the free states, and then we may be in slavery forever. So we're going to compromise, and these people are going to be 3/5 of a man, And therefore, from that compromise comes the U.S. Constitution, right? So when you start to talk about the history, then civics can be embedded. And when the Constitution comes, Article 1, Executive, Article 2, Legislative, Article 3, Judicial. Article 1 is actually legislative, my bad. 2 is executive. But when you get in that space, then you use the opportunity to talk about civics. But because our curriculum remains so disjointed, the civics component is last. So you leave school thinking that my job is to give you a tax check. I remember a Haitian man one time came to me, he was cussing me out in Politician Park. I was getting some Armstrong ice cream that day. And
How dare you?
I know, right? And in my first term, going back to not being politically correct, and he cussed me, you said, that's Sauraw, and he called me Sparrow. And I said, that would be me. And he carry on, and I listened to him, and after I say, when you in Haiti, they get any effing tax check? I didn't need to respond like that. But I'm just saying that I was frustrated because I'm just like, if you take a minute to understand the system to which you pay your taxes, you wouldn't be asking me this question. But the next thing on the tax check, too, not to talk about government, look at our VIPD. Every year we allocate $20 to $30 million. That's how much tax returns would be in the budget. And it's in a miscellaneous section. When you have a VIPD that asks you for a certain budget, they come before you to defend the budget and you actually give them what they want. But then when you have, beside the lack of or the shortage of police officers, when you look at not the rank and file, but the leadership of the VIPD, when they're taking home $300,000 in overtime and $200,000, when you look at the hours that they work, there's no way that they work those hours. That means you never sleep. And you raking in $19 million in overtime in the first quarter. Where you think that money come from to pay VIPD overtime?
I'm the same pool with a tax check.
They got to wrap on Peter to PayPal. So when you can't get your tax check, people don't understand government as well. I just take it into some education. So when you don't manage your resources and you have the disgraced commissioner's wife going home with $325,000 at the end of the year, their combined home is $500,000, and you have lieutenants and the people are really in the streets just raking in overtime just because. How you want a tax check when you have a gross misuse in this direction here, and you want the government in doing their job, and it goes back to the people, they're the senators. I don't sign off on payroll. I don't approve overtime. That's us. That's a regular man in a job doing what they do, and they're affecting the fact that you can't get a tax check. And we don't really make the connection like that. So we're going to be blame senators and the governor because you can't get a tax check. But why? What's the why?
So where would that oversight come from, as far as preventing that from happening? Like you say, they come to you and they ask for a certain amount of money. I say, okay, but then they start asking for more, right? And then they start pulling from wherever they could pull it from to do that.
You don't even ask for money, just pull it.
Just pull it. That's what I'm saying. Like, where's the oversight?
So we have the oversight, but then it goes back to leadership. If a commissioner comes before us and you see this is a problem, it's incumbent on you to go back and address it, right? Or for the governor to look at the hearing and call them up and say, listen, what just happened on you today? But we're okay with that level of leadership. We're okay with yes men, and I'm a yes man. So it goes back to your point that they get by because they're going to not vote and they're going to support the establishment. The establishment is feeding them and they get to do what they want to do. Now, if Governor Sauraw come in and say, no, you work 80 hours, go home. We don't need you. This is a piece of the system. I become the enemy of the state. And we want to change, but we don't want to change.
Recently, with all the political goings on in America as it pertains to immigrants and who should come and who shouldn't go, I've been very antagonistic on that side of the fence. And my explanation will come out now. When you go to America, you don't want to assimilate, right? You want to say, I'm Afro-Caribbean, I'm from here, I'm there, I should go to America and be whoever I want to be. But when people come to the Virgin Islands, specifically white people, we beckon them to assimilate. So one, for me, it's already hypocritical. You want to go to the mainland, you don't want to assimilate. You want people to come from the mainland and you want them to assimilate. And then we see a lot of rhetoric online about the colonizers and they don't assimilate and they come in to take our land and opportunities and stuff like that. As a person of leadership that has to govern all walks of life in the Virgin Islands, at any capacity you're in, how do you balance because what we have as Afro-Caribbean people is real, like the traumas are real. So I'm not negating those traumas, right? Like I witness them, I feel them from friends, family, foes, whoever. But at the same time, we're still trying to be the moral lighthouse, right? So how do you balance understanding our traumas and still moving us forward in acceptance of people who are coming and want to find a life in the Virgin Islands?
The root is a debate between a have and a have-nots.
Right.
So when you look at it, and it comes out and it's painted as a black and white issue, and it's really not. It boils down to the have and the have-nots.
Right.
So when you see people fussing about the quote-unquote colonizers, they're really telling you, I don't have it, but they have it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I can't get home, but they fly from where they come from and they could get home, right? Our education system is also rooted along racial lines.
Right.
You don't really find white children in public school.
Right.
You'll find them in All Saints, Montessori, Catholic School, and Tilly's, right? Along with some local children too. So the have and the have-nots is like, when my child go to school in a modular classroom, where you come here and you can afford and things. Why I, as a small business owner, I don't get no tax breaks, where you could come in for where you come from and get a 90% tax break. So the debate is really the have and the have-nots.
Is it their fault or is it?
No, it's not their fault.
Is it?
But it's misplaced anger that we talk about.
Right.
So as a policymaker, my job is to actually work to level the playing field.
Right.
Revamp the AEC program needs to be revamped. When you look at education, people wouldn't fuss if their child went to a decent school. They wouldn't give two shits of who come in because they're going to a state-of-the-art public high school, right? They wouldn't have to complain about the fan dropping from the roof. So for me, as a policymaker, and it's only so much I could do in the Senate, I wish I had time to do more to craft better policy, but it's hard when you're trying to craft policy and then your whole day get taken up by trying to hunt down like a vendor. I spent maybe 2 weeks trying to find a vendor payment for this one vendor because his business will close because we put him on and he got to pay his subcontractors. And so when you spend time diverting from, because our job is to craft policy, to pass the budget, to appropriate funds, to approve appointees, you kind of segue from that and become a super commissioner.
Right.
You supervising the commission and say, hey, so like for example, I moved money to fix the First Avenue in front of St. Andrews.
Right.
For a long time, and they calling, Eric, you going to give me my road? What the road? You going to fix the road? Yeah. So you spend all this time doing things like that. And I probably could have done, I wish I could have done more on the policy side to really kind of level the playing field. But policy is one thing, implementation is also the other half of it. And we struggle on the implementation side. We have an enforcement deficiency. So people are complaining that you're coming in, you got a home, but on the local side, banks aren't working for you. And that's a whole topic we cover the next day. And when you're working, the fact that we put most of our money in two main banks, one in giving construction loan, and one asking you your debt ratio and all that with student loans factoring in certain things, and then it becomes hard for us. And the process of home ownership is a very difficult process.
How do we hold those banks?
Before you do that, because she's such a polished politician, that she thought you were going to like skate that. Right? We live in Atlanta, me and Kai, right, for the most part. And when you look at the inner cities, they have terrible schools. And when you go out in the counties, they have nice schools. And we could sit in Atlanta and say that the government is not doing, or the people are not doing what they're supposed to do for the public schools, hence why, the populace in the county goes to the better schools. Here in the Virgin Islands, we all look alike, and our politicians all look like us, and our public schools are crap. And the private schools are better, right? And I think that if I'm a person coming from Oklahoma and I'm studying the territory,
You go in a private school.
if I reading the internet, if I reading people comments on how they talk about people like me coming here, why would I put my kid in CAHS? One, it's ran down. We the people aren't taking care of our children. We the people aren't taking care of our children. And two, the rhetoric amongst the community doesn't feel so accepting for me to put my white kid in CHS. Why would I not put, if I could afford it, why would I not put them in Antilles?
No, I am not disagreeing with your sentiments. I'm telling you that I understand. You asked me as a leader, how do I manage that space? And the space is for me to create a more equitable playing field, but also as well, the territory has always operated from a place of a deficit.
Right.
When I think it's Howard Hoover came down to the Virgin Islands, either Hoover or Truman, he described the VI as an ineffective poorhouse. We've always been looked at as a poorhouse. Then came Hovensa in 1964, a refinery, and then, of course, because remember when the whole slavery went out and agriculture and sugar died, what's next? Right? St. Croix lost its glory in that time because St. Croix was the breadbasket of St. Croix actually fueled the Virgin Islands, and it's actually still fueling the Virgin Islands because to save the retirement system, we use St. Croix rum distilleries to move the rum cover over into the system. So St. Croix is actually saving us right now.
Right.
But when you look at our history, we've always been in a place of a deficit. So I'm not blaming the colonizer. I'm just saying that's the why. So when you have all this money and money is coming in, it's like, okay, let's defer the school maintenance. We don't really have to fix the schools because we have to meet payroll, right? And you go tell a man, he will get you check in 2 weeks. I mean, and then we've always had in a place, okay, we don't have this amount of money, so we're going to float a bond. And you're floating bonds, so you can't float no more till you have junk bonds. That's like taking out a credit card to pay the next credit card and another loan, and before you know, you're going for a payday loan. And then by the time you do all these things, you're in massive debt. That has been the trajectory of our economic policy. Is it okay?
Right.
No. We need a new economic model, and the economic model that we have, where it's just solely tourism, that can't work. We have to diversify the economic portfolio. And we need to actually stimulate the private sector. If we could get the private sector moving, because when government, in poli-sci, you learn that when government is the largest employer of the people, you remain a welfare state. And government is the largest employer of the people. We were taught historically to go to college, come back and get a government job. That was the rhetoric. So when you have everybody reliant on this one system, then now there's this massive change where we're like, we ain't going to government. So because you're going to government now, there's a 1-to-1 ratio. Before it was a 4 active employee to 1 retiree, so the system functioned. But now we ain't going in the system, it's a 1-to-1. Who paying the Ponzi scheme of the retirement system? So if we could better stimulate the private sector, and the Economic Development Authority is good with these companies having all these benefits, but we're not negotiating in good faith for the territory. We're not using that system properly. So if we have more private sector businesses, we're able to stimulate the economy, and then you have a better distribution of wealth. Among ourselves, we have a clique in government as well too, where we know the clique. So I'm going to give you the deal, you get the deal, you get the best property, and we share the money among ourselves. That's a disaster, economic disaster. You have to have a better distribution of wealth. And that's the problem. So because we have
or
this
distribution of opportunity.
Correct. So when you have this poor economic model taking place, then you can't really disburse money to the needed areas. So you have these random schools that are looking like concentration camps, for lack of a better word, and then people come to the territory and they invest more in a private school than anything else. When you have a tax break, and some of these EC companies, when you get a tax break, they charge the tuition to the parents' paycheck, and they get a tax write-off for things like that. Is that beneficial? No.
So I want to shift the conversation. We're on economics, so we could stay here. My biggest thing, I started in credit, right? Where I understood how you could leverage credit to build wealth. Once you start building that wealth, you got to pay that credit. So my message is earn more income. right? You have to earn more income. Credit can't solve your problem. Income is what will solve your problem. And it's sounding like that's what the government is struggling with.
That's the point I'm making. Our expenditures far exceed our revenues.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only reason we're able to function in these last couple of years is a false economy.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though we had these massive expenditures, our revenues look good because we had to lose our federal funds that enter the territory via the pandemic and via the hurricane, the disaster.
Mm-hmm.
But when that money run out,
oh, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
And right now it is running out.
Yeah.
And Bank 1 and Bank 2 is empty.
Mm-hmm.
And then you still have to pay vendors. And because you can't pay the vendor, the vendor can't pay gross receipts, corporate income tax, individual income tax. You can't pay the employees, so the dollar could circulate the economy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem that we have right now. We have to stimulate the private sector.
Okay. And in stimulating the private sector, I agree. Mm-hmm. I agree 1,000%. I feel like it goes all the way back to the conversation we have. And earlier when we talk about the capacity of these people not understanding the issues because a tax check is dangled in front of them. And this is more important for them. I feel like it's something that we have to peel back these layers all the way, going all the way back to the kids and having them understand financial literacy as to it should be implemented in the schools. I feel like we go out into the world, we got to learn how to pay taxes, we got to learn how to build our credit and all that stuff that's not being taught in the schools in the capacity that it should be in my purview, right? And then we end up having kids that's not financially literate, and then they turn into adults that's not financially literate, and then them adults get voted into politics because they make a bunch of promises that they can't keep, and then we in this cycle, bro. So I try and figure out. You said we need to focus on the private sector, which I agree.
Education.
And education. How? Like what? In your view, what would that look like as far as getting the education system to incorporate more financial literacy into this?
I think when I left, somebody was trying to get a bill to incorporate financial literacy. The curriculum needs to be revamped, period. I know when we were running for Senate, I had a long talk one time on a live about my view, even athletics. I back there. If you're a baseball player, and it's funny because I taught for a year in the States, in the middle of me being bored. I taught economics. And the state of Florida has this financial literacy workbook. So my students had to tell me when you start to looking for a condominium, should they buy a condo, a house, or rent? And if you pick a condo, tell me your fees. And they start to come back and say, oh man, the condo fees, and then the HOA fees. And they were thinking, and then we learned to write a check. We understood what's good credit, bad credit, and I would give them options to pick a credit card. What credit card works for you as a student right now? Because credit card companies target
students.
Good. So we had that happening, and when I spoke to you about 4 years ago, the entire curriculum has to be revamped. But it goes back to government again. When I realized the curriculum was a problem, I looked at the Board of Education, and the Board of Education are all elected people, and some of them I really don't understand what they're doing there. But then I tried to change the Board of Education, and you couldn't. Because the Board of Education, its qualifications is rooted in the Organic Act, which is our constitution. And we got no constitution. So I got to go change it. I have to go petition Congress and ask them, if you could change this little section for me, please. And the scheme of things that they have going on, the Organic Act is not a problem for them. Hence why I went back and I said, well, we need a constitutional convention, because I need a constitution. The Board of Education must change. So to answer your question, people like the layers, you just talk about the layers, right? People don't get the complexity of the issue. So it sounds simple, like, okay, we could just incorporate this, but when you have look at the competition on the Board of Education, and I don't want to knock them, but tell me which one I'm really taking a really holistic look at the curriculum. So now, because the board is in this capacity, we look for the Department of Education to do that. That's not their job, right? So you have Diane and the rest of them trying to figure out, how do we stick in civics? How do we stick in speech? Remember, we were graduating, they gave us 3 new classes to graduate. We had speech, reading, and computer literacy. That was the 3 new credits that we had in 2003 to graduate. So for me now, when you have a generation of athletes going back to me teaching in the States, I remember I had late arrivals in class. because I taught at Grandview Prep, and there was this academy called the Everett Academy. These are tennis students, and actually maybe 2 or 3 of them going to pro right now. They were trained in the morning, and they lived in this community where they were training, and they were training in the morning, and they would begin their school day at 11 o'clock. And they were late arrivals. We got baseball players, we have all these programs. Our athletes should be able to train in the morning in their respective sports and show up to maybe 11 to 1 and go to school and change the curriculum to accommodate them. Same with music. If you're in the arts, I suggest taking art academics in the morning, and then from 1 to 4 o'clock, you report to the auditorium, or down here to Miss Humphrey to learn stage production, or you learn music engineering in your section, and then at the end of the year, it should be some big production where the music class is the background music.
Right.
Those that are acting in their capacity, like a magnet program, fine arts. Then you have the lighting crew, like they're here now, running the stuff behind the scenes. The curriculum has to change. It can't be the same 90-minute class.
But
4 classes.
Detractors would say that education system that we're criticizing produced you and many others.
But it produced me and many others because we were able to adapt to the outside world, and we had good influence at home that allowed us to see different parts of the world.
Right.
But look at my niece, for example. She struggled in her first and second year of college. She was a biology major. Nikia, you never seen no lab.
Right.
So she going to school to be a doctor, and Nikia struggling in chemistry because she don't know what a lab look like.
Right.
But if we're able to say, okay, you know, magnet program for the fine arts. Let's look at the boating industry. When you want to take a sail, a lot of our boat captains, we have local ones, but really who dominates the boating industry? They don't look like us.
Yeah. From South Africa, all over the world.
So if we're able to get a program where we say, hey, you want to be a boat captain, you want to be in the marine industry, turn around and say, well, when you don't start school here. You get to the dock in the morning and you learn to tie the ropes, do whatever you have to do, get your sea time in. Then when you finish sailing in the morning, you come into classes, and then by the end of the year, we're preparing to take your customs test, your Coast Guard test, and then your graduation. So it should be that the fact that you just get a captain's license, or you're on your way to learn to be a diesel mechanic for the boat. But we're not looking at that, you know. We just hear like, oh, standard courses, math, science, reading, calculus, and then when you apply for a job, would you apply the quadratic equation on your resume? No. Right? So we have to make the education system, to your point, a lot more relevant. But how do you do that when you don't have when you look at policy has to, be credible, have a credible source. You need to consult with the primary source, and you have to have the stakeholders involved. And because we don't do any of that, we have an antiquated education system.
You mentioned the Department of Education and the Board of Education. Talk about the differences, like what their each responsibility
The board sets policy in Title 17 of the Virgin Code. The board sets policy, and education's job is to implement it.
So like the board is like the legislature, the senators, and the board got to do what the department have to do what the board says.
But there's some overlap too in the code, where the department have some board duties and the board has department duties. So the code has to be cleaned up, and of course, the Organic Act in most states, the Commissioner of Education answers to the board or the superintendent. The superintendent is chosen by the board. Here in the Virgin Islands, it's highly political. The governor makes that decision.
Are they both necessary, or should they be consolidated?
Can they?
Can they be? Yeah, like are those two entities necessary for kids to be educated?
You need a check and balance system. Okay. So you watch Lean and Me?
Yes.
When Mr. Clark, when they gave me Mr. Clark, he had to answer to the board.
Yeah, but you paid attention to that. I was just, you're killing your brain, so you're killing your brain. I was just
jump, right?
Jump,
Ben, what's your name?
That part for me. Yeah. That part for the
board. But you remember
me.
when he expelled the children,
and
he walked into the school board meeting the night, and he had the poor man stress out.
Yeah.
So there has to be a checker. Any system has to have a check and balance system.
That'll be the stressful part for me. Read more into the politics than I am. But what'll drive me crazy, and I understand the checks and balances, they're necessary. But
the red tape.
Oh my God. It's Jesus Christ. I just want financial literacy in the schools so these damn children could learn how the importance of money and how to spend money, how to use it, how to leverage it. But in order for that to happen, I got to talk to Susie, who then got to talk to Jan, and then Jan got to talk to Jessica. And then
But the superintendent also has a lot of power. The superintendent and the LEAs, that would be the local educational level, and the SCAs, your state education level, and the LEAs, which is the superintendents, they have the power to tell you, Kyle, you have to go ahead to even run a training, because remember, teachers have to have a level of a certain amount of also professional development a year. So they have the discretion during their PDs to say, Kyle, you can come in and we're going to talk to the math teachers, and if we can't get the curriculum changed right now, just to go around. It goes back to vision and creative leadership. Man. So you have the ability to say, Kyle, come in and we're going to have this professional development with our math teachers on the elementary level today. Tomorrow will be the secondary level. And let's talk about how you could incorporate financial literacy into the math classes. So there's a section of the math program that should be like, okay, now it's Kyle time to come in, or Kyle will hand over his resources or his workbook or whatever our exercises. There are ways around it in the absence of all the obstacles that we just see. Creative leadership is actually a degree at UVI. I don't know what's going on, but that is creative leadership.
That's what creative leadership.
I hate big government, and I hate when government gets in the way. But with that being said, I don't like when the locals, me, myself, and others blame the government, because to me, we are the government, especially if it makes up 60%. It gives 60% of the jobs in the territory. So a bunch of stuff with red tape, to me, like when I look at it and I'm like, okay, where are we now, and what have we been doing from then to now? I don't want to do that anymore. Because where we are is not where we want to be. And
you call it over legislating, and Ronald Reagan, because you like the Republicans, right? Ronald Reagan once said that the government that governs least governs the best. Right? But in our case, we tend to overgovern because we had so many corruption situations. So the solution to corruption is to give more rules. The solution to gun violence is to create more archaic gun laws. And you still reduce the crime. Right? So it's really a matter of, we have to actually, and I'm going to say we again, because it's all of us, we have to really look at how we tackle issues from a different perspective. And it can't always be, and I have to reference the Bible, because in the Old Testament, you had the 10 Commandments, you had all these Jewish laws. If you make a mistake, you have to bring your goat and sacrifice your best animal and kill the animal. Remember, Isaac went to go put his son up on a hill and sacrifice his son. Then the New Testament came about, and Jesus was like, no, this is a lot of rules. You got 2 commandments to love your neighbor as yourself and love your God with all your heart. So I ain't trying to be religious. I'm drawing a historical reference that sometimes when we do so much rules, then we have a problem, right? But then when we start to scale back and allow free will in a different way, then you see a reduction. Look at Amsterdam. They don't have all them rules, but they ain't got no drug issues, and they got drug and there's substances and things you could drink in the States. The age to drink is 21. So you have all these DUIs because people sneak in to drink. In the Virgin Islands, we just drink without any ID. We don't really have, so we have to look at the application of rules, and are we over legislating? And in many cases we are. There's too much right there.
It is.
Right. I agree. You've always been great with campaign slogans. So now that they're sending you to the hill, hey, when I see that, y'all like, boy, oh, she come up with that one. Send her to the hill. Send her to the hill. She win already.
She win.
Right? You're now going to be, even when you're in the legislature, your concerns was everyone in the Virgin Islands, right? So before I get to personal concerns of the people, broad overview of the vision of Janelle Sarauw, Dr. Janelle Sarauw, to be on the hill. Like what? Because I felt, and no disrespect to Stacey, I just felt like you were up there to argue with the liberals against the Republicans, and you're just there. Like, what were you? Not to say she hasn't done anything, because she's done things, right? I don't. If she wasn't doing anything, I think they'd have done get out of there a long time. But she didn't do things in a manner that the regular, normal citizen like myself, it will register. Like, this is necessary for me, and I need this right now, and I need the big brother government to... What's your vision for yourself?
And real quick, let me add to that.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to us understanding the roles of these politicians
Right.
and these jobs.
Right.
What is the role of the delegate?
You don't have a role. So
what are we supposed to do?
To answer the last question first.
Go ahead. Right.
Remember now when we had the Organic Act of 1936, and you have Organic Acts because we were unincorporated, unorganized territory when we were first purchased. Then they needed such a rules to govern us. So came the Organic Act of 1936, and we became an unincorporated, organized territory.
Right.
And then we revised the Organic Act of 1954. And then when you have these territories, now they're like, well, we're going to hold Congress for us. Yeah. So they just changed the law, probably like a sentence or two, to say that now we're allowed to have a delegate to Congress. Puerto Rico is called a resident commissioner to Congress. So the role for me, and that's a good thing because it gives me a blank slate. And it's canvas to paint on. But a quick correction, Stacey actually was a Republican first. And then became a Democrat. Now for me, government struggles because of a lack of continuity.
Right.
And I don't want to go to Congress to undo the work of Stacey.
Right.
There are things that were done that were very well that should be built upon. And I also want to add my own flavor to the mix as well. For me, I bring authentic leadership.
Right.
It's been a very long time you've had, because you had Randy Lugo for a very long time.
Right.
Dana Christensen, Vincent Fraser briefly, I think. And Stacey, I bring that authentic leadership. I walk among you. I have that mix of that Crucian mix. I'm a first generation St-Omian. So I have the Crucian mix. I understand St. Croix issues very well.
You have a friend.
I understand the issues that St. Thomas face. I understand in particular the issues that St. John face with the National Park. The recent directive for them to actually remove the signage from the Annabelle Plantation, which is our history, is the erasure of history taking place as well. And just how St. John, the property tax issue, the national monuments that were declared in Trump Bay that took away the fisheries from the fishermen. So my time in the local government, really, you never ascend to a place before your time. So my time in the Virgin Islands, first working in government house and then in the legislature positions, me to really have a good grasp because I lived those experiences to go on a hill and to actually fight those issues. One would be the Teferi Basin for me. The Teferi Basin is the reimbursement by the federal government to our hospitals. Our hospitals are going to always continue to have bad debt because they're public. So when you go there and you're going to pay pause or a gunshot victim get shot, and you have to save that person, whether or not you have insurance, I have to have an oath, a Hippocratic oath to take care of you, right? So we can't refuse anybody. So you can always be giving free services. But our Teferi base is really an antiquated old formula that has never been revisited. Even onto our Medicare and Medicaid program, our MEP system, doctors and pharmacies lose money by treating people with diabetes and insulin. So the reimbursement for insulin for the territory is less than what insulin actually costs. So one pharmacy lost like $250,000 in a year just treating a diabetic patient when they make it to the donut hole. So my first thing would be we have to tackle the Teferi Basin. The territory doesn't its fair reimbursement. And me asking for our federal hand, we have a mirror tax code system. We're asking for the fact that give us equity. If you're going to reimburse the other states at the rate it should be reimbursed, reimburse the territory at the same rate because you're going to run the hospitals, you're going to run the MEP system into the ground. But what makes it hard to fight that fight is when you have 11 people indicted in the MEP system. I can't go to DC and say, hey, give me $100. And I look back and I say, well, what's going on down there? That's what would make the job, to be honest. And the second thing, you said that things aren't explained in layman's terms for you. So let me set up for this one. The rum cover over, for example. There's this, my opponent talks about, Terry Helenies talks about this rum cover over and trying to secure the permanent rum cover over. Stacey is the same thing. She's like, hey, permanent rum cover over. So the rum cover over for the listening viewing audience is the monies that we receive from the federal government. That's our money that they remit back to us for the distilling of rum and St. Croix, with the largest rum distilleries. So we get our money back, and so to save the retirement system, before we used to take that money and give it to hospitals, head, and we disperse the funds in a responsible manner. But because the retirement system was facing a $4 billion of unfunded liability and they're on its way out, we pledged all of those funds to the retirement system for the next 30 years for a special purpose vehicle. So the RUM money, in layman's terms, no longer goes to the government or the Virgin Islands, but straight to GRS to fund the system. The problem I have is that before the RUM cover, it was $10.50 per proof barrel. And so the $10.50 means that we wasn't really getting anything back. They move it to $13.25, and it's a permanent thing. So this is your language now. So when we got the $10.50, it wasn't enough. It wasn't adequate enough. Governor Turnbull in 1997 said, listen, we need $13.25. Congress granted the extension. Dion came, he asked for the same thing. Congress gave him the extension. MAP came, Congress gave him the extension until the extension run out. We went back to the $10.50, which left us in a place of like a deficit, right? $90 million toward the retirement system. We had a shortfall there. They pushed and they pushed for $13.25 for it to be permanent. I disagree with that. That has to be revisited because in economics is called the time value of money. So if you're asking for $13.25 from 1997 to now, you think $13.25 in 1997? Right,
we
so
need equivalent of what $13.25
is $13.25.
and it shouldn't even be a number. It should be a percentage.
Yes. Right.
Because whenever that value move, if you have the percentage, you're going to always get your fair share. But when Casamigo moved to $100, you will still get $13.25.
Exactly.
And Casamigos back then, I don't drink, was probably in the 20s, 30s. It's probably how much a bottle is now, what? 50, 60? I don't know how much it costs. But I'm just saying that, to me, that's poor economics. Like, that wasn't vision. There should have been a clause that we advocated for. So I want to do it. I want to advocate for, listen, this percentage here, I mean, this $13.25 ain't it for me.
Flat rate, ain't it?
Every couple of years, we visit and then going back to the data, rum consumption has decreased over the years. So we ain't going to never get what we're supposed to get, which in turn impacts the longevity and the life of the retirement system to bring it back home. So in Congress, I need to be able to go up and say, listen, this $13.25 isn't it. We should revisit this number, and it shouldn't surpass this percentage, and it shouldn't drop below this percentage. But because there's a lack of authentic leadership, right? I have two retired parents. Which one of them have two living retired parents to understand the impact of the system? I mean, all of that. So my vision, and I could talk till tomorrow, but I just want to bring into layman's terms the fact that the retirement system is a problem because of that $13.25, and we touting that $13.25 as
if it's an accomplishment.
The governor, all of them, oh yes, we got a permanent, and I'm like $13.25 from 1997 to now. That, but going back to us is a bare minimum, so we rejoice in that. People don't understand the impact of that, and I feel that's what takes me above the other politicians is the fact I'm a trained political scientist. I don't go to, if a doctor giving me a lab report, I mean, his job is to interpret it, right? That's what he does. I am very good at what I do. So the TEFRA rebates and the MEP reimbursements are a problem for me, and I actually want to bring to national attention. We need the Constitution to be shepherded through as well, because we have a convention. People have to vote on this Constitution, and at some point it has to be approved by the Congress. So I need to be able to take that document and walk around both sides of the aisle and say, listen, we need a level of political maturity, self-determination. This is crafted by the people. We need your stamp of approval. So I plan to lobby my behind off, my ass off. I don't plan to be polarizing, because if I have to sit with the devil, not Epstein, but if I have to sit, and I use that loosely, I don't think Trump is a devil, right? But if I have to sit in Trump's office and say, listen, the territory needs so and so, and these are the reasons why, and provide the data to him and his staff as to why we need it, I will do it. You know, I don't plan to go up and wage no war with anybody, because at the end of the day, my people will suffer. And I'm not trying to imply that's what Stacey did. It's actually my vision.
Your vision,
My vision is to actually get uncommon people to attain common results.
That was actually my first conversation with Kyle when we did Senator the Hill. I was like, Kyle, I just hope she go up there and just fight for the Virgin Islands and just don't get between the men.
No, But as you know, and I think what sets that apart too is that my track record shows it, that I have never been held account. I never I never answered to the party.
Right.
I never answered to any administration. It was always to the people.
Yeah.
Right.
And as you could see, the match people when you're ready.
Right.
But I don't think it could go without question. I don't love the Virgin Islands, because I do.
That's true.
Before you go to that, right?
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I joined the military at 17 years old. February 2003 when I went to Puerto Rico in MEPS and I signed up, right? And they tell me, yeah, man, join the military. You can join the National Guard. You can just be here for hurricane. Hurricane come, you help people out of the house. Man, you ain't got nothing going on.
You get deployed.
Listen, I was February 25th, 2003 is when I signed them papers. A week later in March is when them man infiltrated Afghanistan. March 2003. And I sitting down in my grandmother's house in the ghetto, was watching the TV of bombs being dropped in Afghanistan and the news reporter saying, we officially entered Afghanistan. And And I signed up last week. Long story short, later that year in September, we got our marching orders from George Bush at the time to be deployed to Iraq. A man I couldn't vote for. A man I didn't vote for. A man, even if I wanted to vote for him or not for him, I couldn't do it. Is that something that can be revisited? Is it a possibility? That's a dead dog? How can we talk about Virgin Islanders' territories being able to vote for the
That's the heart of my dissertation. Democracy denied.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that you can't vote is the insular cases of 1901. The state that we are aliens and that we are savages to be governed by Anglo-Saxon principles. And we're fighting a battle in the wrong branch of government. We keep going to the court and asking the court to overturn the insular cases when it's a legislative matter. So the more we go to the court and the more that the court rule against us, we really set bad case law. And of course in case
Building
law,
a case against ourselves.
yeah, and in case law, when you want to
have to reference.
a judge just like these 10 cases before I be like, based on case law, in the absence of any ruling, if you don't have no code to go by, no law to go by, they're going to reference a case, right?
Precedents.
So, precedents. So we're setting very, very bad precedents in the Supreme Court. That matter should be fought in the House of Congress for the right to vote, because the territories combined population surpass roughly 11 states in the United States. But I think that also it boils down to race in a sense. The territories are full of people of color, whether they're Black, Latino, or Pacific Islander, for lack of a better word. So in most cases outside of Puerto Rico, if you allow these people of color to vote, I believe the balance of power is going to shift.
Yeah, definitely. I figured that's what it was. To me, that's what it was.
Yeah. But my father is actually a Vietnam War vet, and that was really what sparked some of my questions as well. My father was good enough to draft my grandmother, who never been on a plane before, drop him off in Georgia, telling him he was going to Vietnam to kill young and, young babies, but he can't vote for the community, but he's enough to die for the country. So that would be a battle that I want to fight, but that wouldn't be completed if I'm going to be realistic. I didn't mention it because I don't like to overpromise. It would be a battle that I would continue throughout my time in Congress. That wouldn't be 1 in 2 years. And that's a term limit. That would be the duration of the term.
And I'm glad that you said that, and I'm going to let you go. My next question is, I love how you just articulated that this is something that's going to be ongoing in your fight, right? We've seen cases of people take this seat of delegate to Congress to set up for something bigger in the future. I don't have a problem with that, but I always wonder, I know that things can't be fixed overnight. It will take a level of dedication to get what you want done. Speak a little bit to the fact of you seeking this seat to do what needs to be done, as opposed to, I just want to get to a bigger position, which could be, say, governor of the Virgin Islands in 4 or 5 years.
For me, none of my elected seats have been me wanting a position. I have a degree, degrees in political science, and soon a doctorate degree in politics as well, focused on the case of the U.S. Virgin Islands in comparison to the territories. So me seeking that position is rooted in love and leading with love. right? I can't lead if I don't love something.
Yes.
I don't know how to be fake, and I'm a very passionate human being.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a Libra in me, but I'm about like fairness and justice, I always want to go on some fight to save the world, right?
Yeah.
And my studies, I spent the last 5 years immersed in literature, studying Sylvia Winter and The Ceremony Must Be Found and all of what she spoke about through the Jamaican context, and then George Lamin of Barbados, and then you have Franz Fanon of Martinique, and Maurice Bishop and his case in Grenada. So, and that's just a few of these like warriors that we have, even Fidel Castro and Che Guevara of Cuba. So I spent all of this time understanding these movements and what it takes. And we know that, the wheels of justice, they grind, but they grind slowly. Yeah. So for me, in spending all that time studying the Virgin Islands, I realized we have a problem on the federal side. When you have education embattled in a third party, when you have the BIPD, the Bureau of Corrections, and a few other government agencies with a consent decree, and you spend all this money with consent decrees here and this and that, there's a heavy federal presence that we have in the Virgin Islands. So when we spent $23 million, that was the money at the time in 2022, and a consent decree from our money to pay the federal government to tell us to oversee the police department.
That's crazy.
Right?
So we're paying for that.
We pay for that. We pay for all the consent decrees. We pay the third-party fiduciaries. So when I started to look at the Virgin Islands, we are very much still colonized, but it's a different level of colonization. Yeah. And I want to be able for us to get to a place where in our mindset, we always say something like, call the feds. They're already here.
Exactly.
When do we change our mindset to say we could save ourselves? Going back to your point, when do we say we could do it? Because we have the capacity to do it, right? We have all these locals living abroad in the diaspora. We have to change our laws to have more remote work. Why you living in Atlanta can't be my budget analyst. You got to open a spreadsheet and look and tell me, hey, blah, 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 blah. Or you want it to come and report to work in OMB above the post office in the historic district to sit there and to go through WAPA and all of this stuff. But when you look at the federal government now, they've shifted their policy to remote. So I say to say that for me in that place, it is rooted in love. It was never, let me ascend to a higher place. What really sparked, actually, when I was in elementary school, he asked me what I wanted to be. I said the first female governor of the Virgin Islands. Okay. So if I wanted to accept, and that was before I had even, I didn't think about the parks. I didn't think about. So for me, like in elementary school, I wanted to be the first female governor. I didn't really understand the pulse of the job, the salary. I just then wanted to lead the Virgin Islands. And there was an interview also when I was playing Little League Baseball. I just did a shutout game, and I have an article home, and they asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was 12 years old.
You were playing against boys?
I was the only girl in
and you shut out?
Ask them mommy.
I was there, man. Don't worry. I was there. I just wanted to highlight that. I was there.
She shut out boys?
Yeah, that's what she said. It wasn't Rebels.
Oh, no, never.
It could be Rebels.
Don't worry about that part.
I just wanted to know if she... blue clothes?
Yeah, man. How you be?
Anyway. So, it was never about title and power for me, but I got to the congressional role 100% on my dissertation.
Yes.
The more that I write, the more that I was like, I wanted to be the governor, but I may be needed and better suited right now for Congress. Because also outside of VI politics, I understand world history, I understand global policy, and I understand international relations. Like we started off with the Middle East. So I understand the struggles in relation to the Virgin Islands, and I think that I'll be able to sit on very powerful committees whenever. I mean, as a freshman, I could probably get it out in a barrel. I can go back and start from scratch, right? Which I'm okay with. I'm pretty much okay with, being humble and meeting people and learning, and never too old to learn from others as well. So that's, for me, it was never about power. If I wanted power, actually the last 4 years, I had a really good life. I didn't have any worries, right? So, but for me, it's love. Because like you said, I keep choosing the hard road. I left a very cushiony life to say I can go back on the campaign trail and get my life scrutinized, who I sleeping with, what I drink today. If I don't drink. If I have a cup in my hand with some Coke, people will say, Sauraw drunk tomorrow. I mean, I really put myself as a man in the arena again to be scrutinized because I love the Virgin Islands.
Well, you couldn't help it though. Even though she was gone, she wasn't gone.
She was really gone.
We debated a lot in those times.
Facts.
Right? So she was like still, but not publicly, more like behind the scenes.
And, it goes to show
her passion. They help it.
So this is home,
she won't get no money for it. She was just arguing the same way. You know what I mean? So I'll testify to that. But you go into the Hill, I think that you're going to the Hill. I think you'll be very suited for the Hill. I'm going to manifest it from now. And earlier you mentioned St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. Little do people know, Water Island
is a fourth
one.
My father was the first administrator for Water Island.
Right. Correct. Right? But I've spoken to a couple residents on Water Island, and I've asked them. I felt like I said, this go out wrong, I'm going to give people voices on the podcast, right? I'm going to let them send me some thoughts and questions so I could present to leadership, right? And they had some concerns about the road. I'm going to just,
trash.
Road. What is that what going on?
Road, trash. The issues from 1995.
Dinghy dock repair. The green dump on Water Island is one of the biggest safety concerns. And beach traffic and bathrooms, stuff like that.
The septic and that beach and honeymoon beach is an issue.
Right. And also the World War II fort. That is almost like a museum. I've been there once, and when I was there, it didn't have any signage or anything. Like, I had to figure it out myself in a sense, right? And I think Water Island's a bit more populated with children now, but I think it's about 14 to 15 kids on Water Island. I could only imagine how they have to catch the ferry to go to school in the morning. I mean, St. John, people would be like, we've been doing this for years. I don't think St. John should have to deal with the same thing either. But I feel like because they're so small out the way and most of them don't look like us, they're forgotten.
Well, I understand the issues of Water Island intricately. One, my dad was the first St. Thomas Water Island administrator. That's when Water Island was officially transferred to the Virginians under Governor Snyder.
Right.
So he spent a lot of time with Colette back in the day on those issues. So that's one. And then two, my math teacher, Mr. Cloper in Alamala, was, you live on Water Island, every day Mr. Cloper come to school with, from hair down wet. He come on the dinghy, and the bottom of his pants and his shoes always wet.
Right.
And then he would tell us the problems of Water Island, and it's really, I never forgot them.
Right.
So there's been problems since you were in.
Everything you say there, I know. Right? Right. There's the same problems.
Right. How do we?
That's a local government issue, one. But number two, what I would suggest, even with St. Croix as well, we need to look at how we, given the geographical makeup of the Virgin Islands, we need to look at how, and I think I would want to work with Hawaii, Florida as well. American Samoa and Guam don't really have that issue. The Northern Marianas Islands, federal highway safety, right? So when we look at how we classify the federal highways, we give federal dollars for the federal highways. I think we need to look at, and this may be lofty, and I probably need to do some more research on how I can get it done, but the federal highway system the definition needs to change for rural areas.
Right.
So I feel like the federal highway needs to be classified as the sky between here and St. Croix.
Right.
As a waterway between
St. Thomas
and St. John, Water Island, St. Croix. If we could see if we could subsidize. Right now we do subsidize St. Thomas, St. John, because of course those grant monies come in to buy the boat and everything else, or through the Gavi bans. But we shouldn't have to go through a Gavi ban for that. I think that we need to really define, because you see, you could get to Key West, Key Largo, and their highway, but our channels are so deep that we really need to reclassify what constitutes a federal highway, and a highway can't just be a physical structure in the road, but we need special carve-outs for geographic locations that are multi-island or an archipelago of islands, instead of having to pay a Miami flight to go to St. Croix.
And that, asking these questions because you were in local government, and maybe you'd have some insight on how to highlight Water Island and its deficiencies and its needs for it to be better functioning, and even for residents of St. Thomas might be able to move over there and say, it's
much of that is the central government now, because you talk about the beach, right? That would be Sports Park and Recreation. Honeymoon Beach is under what have been on the Calvert's purview.
Right.
We talk about the DAC and the submerged lands, that's
Right.
DPR and Port Authority.
Right.
We talk about the dump, that's just education.
Right.
That would be waste management.
Mm-hmm.
The roads would be public works, you know. So, and and the next thing, too, people expect that as a senator we will know everything.
Right.
But if they come to defend their budget, like for St. John, for example, the Sojanians come and complain to me that they no DAC to launch their fisherman boats. They had no fish house. I was able to move money for an appropriation. I work with Dow and I work with Derek Gabriel of the Port and Public Works and say, well, come up with a quote for me on how much it's going to cost for these two things. They give me a number and I moved legislation through St. John's Capital Improvement Fund. That it was an allocation from that pot of money and I earmarked it specifically for their DAC and their fish house.
Right.
That was 2022. Today, they got the fish house and the DAC. But if that's just government lagging red tape, lagging behind, but if they're able to come and say, you go to this commissioner and say, listen, we have these 10 problems, and what are an appropriation of this amount of money, then you're able to move that money for the central government to fix those issues. That's how it should work.
Right. So along the same lines of isles and inlets, we know that the charter companies in St. Thomas are suffering due to what BVI increased hikes, right? And I don't mind BVI increasing their hikes. That they're their own country. They could do whatever they want. Territory. They should be able to do whatever they want. And I don't have any problem. When I want to do whatever we want, I don't want nobody telling me we can't do whatever we want, right? Mm-hmm. My problem with the Virgin Islands, and I don't know if this will fall under your purview, is that we have so many national guarded park territory things around that. I was on Cookie Point, and there's a little island off of Cookie Point. There's so many little islands around us that are unoccupied, uninhabited, unused. And I feel like most charter companies go to the BVI because in one day you could visit Jos Van Dyke, Tatola, Frenchman Cay, and Virgin Gada. In St. Thomas, St. Croix, so far to the south, if it was closer, we wouldn't have had a problem. We have St. John, and then we don't have anything on the other isles and inlets for people to enjoy a day sail, per se.
And then St. John is super protected by
and St. John is super
national
protected
parks,
by national
so
parks.
you can't really bring no boats and so on.
Right. So, like, as a congresswoman, like, how do we balance the two? Because
I think we have a shared economy. I don't really agree with the BVI have 1,000 islands to choose from.
Right.
We don't have that amount of islands. The Bahamas could do the same thing. The Bahamas could give away one island to Disney, and next one to our next cruise company, and next island to Stars, because you have the island where Tyler Perry, Beyonce house is. So they have things to choose from. We have limited land resources. Right. So I don't agree with taking a few keys that we have. I mean, I didn't even agree. We already take away 2. Little St. James and Great St. James and give it to Epstein, right?
Well, not give it to
not give
person,
it to no, but I think that like, this is a shared.
People can't live over there. That key across over there from
you
can't live over there. Build bars, beaches.
That would be Touch Key.
Right.
That would be Touch Key in and Outer Brass.
Right.
All of those keys. Some of them fall within the territorial park system, and some fall within the federal national park system. They are trust.
Right.
Like even down in Bodo, right behind you, another key back there, and then you have Saber Rock and the rest of them. I think that we can do everything. It doesn't have to be either or, you know. With going to the BVI, I think we need a better relationship with the BVI, and how do we share that economy? How do we have this product where you could go to Tachki in the Outer Brass and still make your way over into the British waters and not make it so complicated? Because it's the same thing with New York. You could drive from New York to Canada and back. Or you could drive from Texas to Mexico without all the extras, right? You share the economy. With the keys, I don't think it should be a hands-off approach. But I think the problem with the keys, and we don't maximize the keys, is that a lack of enforcement.
Right.
So those islands have really, really good habitats. And with the Great St. James, you have what's called the Stair Reef, the St. Thomas East End Resort, one of our largest reef systems. But we don't have enough DPR officers because our boaters, we like to have fun. And when we drop the anchor, we just drop the anchor. Right. We don't take into account, we just drop the anchor in this reef. Right. Or we just drop the anchor in this area that can we drop an anchor? You ever see when an anchor go in the sand?
Yeah.
And you shake up the whole thing, and I mean, we just disrupt the entire habitat of whoever lived on there. Yeah. Right. So I think for the government, in the lack of enforcement, it's a hands-off approach. touch. Don't touch these islands. But if we're able to really beef up the DPNR, the marine side of those DPNR officers, I don't know how much we have left because we had the Tapia Mossa era, some in jail, some stay around. But those enforcement officers have really, really diminished. So the government's solution is literally just don't go to the keys. But I think if we're able to have more moorings in those areas and responsible boating, where you have enforcement on the seas that could say, hey, the anchor in the wrong spot, type to the mooring. Or, I think that we are able to increase the experiences on the product because they boils into a tourism product. So I don't disagree. There's always a way forward, but I don't think we've really sat down and thought about solutions. That's not on our radar. But the BVI has made it part of their product.
Right, and so we're losing to them. And
we've also
our solution is to ask them to lower their prices. To me, it's to beef up what we have.
I think we've given up on the blue economy too, because remember the 6-pack rule. That's really when our charter industry went on with the 6-pack rule, that we couldn't have no more than 6, and then the BVI didn't have that, so they started to shift to the BVI. But when we were younger, charter companies used to come and dock up right on the apron. You had a bustling nightlife because you had the supply and demand. Then you allow.
Why did we come up with that rule?
No, that wasn't us. The 6-pack rule that would be going back to my job. The federal government is who implemented the 6-pack rule.
You said something earlier about redefining the highway system. My good partner TK Peterson owns a gathering. Yeah, you know TK.
The gathering spot.
Yeah, you know the gathering spot in Atlanta. He tell us, he's still on the same blue chair, but this is blue chair is a spirit.
It's a spirit.
When we record in our podcast in our Atlanta location, is a big blue chair. You're in a big blue chair now, right?
Okay.
So he said
cushion's blue.
The cushion's blue. Yeah, you mean like
tealish.
Yeah. So he talked about growing up in St. Croix and how St. Thomas and St. John felt foreign to him because of that connectivity issue. And he went to school with some dudes that were from St. Thomas that invited him to St. Thomas. And then when he got here and he see that you could go on a boat with your car and drive to St. John and drive around St. He was like, wow, blown away, right? And then I was here dealing with some stuff and I had to go. I had a late decision to make. It was like 3 o'clock. And I needed to go to St. John and get back to St. Thomas before 5. And I was able to do that, to handle what I needed to handle. I was like, yo, St. Croix out there by themselves, and they can't experience this. And it leads back to the connectivity issue where we need to figure out how these islands could be. St. Thomas and St. John more so, we don't have that problem. It's more of a St. Croix issue. Like they're out there by themselves. And if you're telling me spend $220 to come St. Thomas, that's the same cost of a flight to go to Florida. Why I come in St. Thomas for? To spend that type of money and I could go Florida.
And St. Croix is not the only one that suffers from that. St. Thomas, St. John too, because there's the lack of empathy. When we have crack a joke and say St. Croix crying. Yeah. But the concerns are valid.
Yes, they are.
So when you see St. Thomas and St. John not also feeling connected to their sister island, St. Thomas and St. John readily dismisses the outcry of St. Croix because of that. So in this whole lack of connectivity, nobody really gains from any of it. Yeah. So I really want to go back and actually, 2 things, really find the federal highway system and actually work with the port to lower their fees so we can have better regional travel. Because when I was going to St. Kitts, anyway, my flight to St. Kitts is $331 from Miami and $1,000 from St. Thomas and Cape Air. Back and forth. It's unrealistic. I want to come back to get to St. Croix to make an appearance Christmas time. I had to take the boat to Nevis. Get Cape Air. My one-way ticket was $771 from Nevis to St. Croix.
That's too much. It's right up the street.
40 minutes.
So
connectivity, I really want to work on. There's so much things to work on, but my priority will be the healthcare system.
There you go.
That's a great equalizer than education.
Okay, and education.
Some MAP, tertiary basing, stabilizing the hospitals, fair reimbursement.
Right.
The Affordable Care Act, for example, if you are considered deaf before we close out, in your states, if you're an MAP, there are federal programs that will help you get your hearing aid so you could function. But if you switch locales and you come to the Virgin Islands and you're still on an MAP, you got to pay $6,000 for a hearing aid. That's a problem because we didn't get a federal carve-outs. The Affordable Care Act does not extend to the territories. That should have been a federal carve-out, and I think that was honored Donna Christensen as a congresswoman. Not attacking her. I don't know what happened there, but we got the exchange instead, where the federal government said, okay, you're going to get Affordable Care Act, but we're going to increase your MEP system. So they just dump money on your territory. So we're able to get 100% reimbursement rate. They just dump it on us with lack of providers, lack of resources, lack of anything, when we should have actually been part of the Affordable Care Act. So if your child has an issue or you're struggling, you are able to get that level of medicine or help through those programs. And we need to actually be included because Murkowski of Alaska was able to get carve-outs for Alaska because she's considered rural. So why we can't?
Yeah, I agree. I'll jump into the currency bag.
Currency bag.
All right. So it's an important segment that is
Don't mess it up. Please.
Okay.
The currency bag. We reach into the bag and we ask certain questions, either or questions. It's gonna make or break you. Okay. These questions are very important, and depending on how you answer,
people have lost elections for less,
and friendships.
Okay.
For less. Okay. You want to kick it out or you want me to kick it out?
Jamman or Vio?
Jamman.
Okay.
Vitamalt or India malt?
India malt.
Coconut, guava, or pineapple tart?
Guava.
You won't make it to the hills.
Well,
guys, it was a nice run.
We tried to put in a position where she could get herself to the hill that she trying to get to.
Yeah, she did.
But then, you know, you can't help everybody. Our cameraman holding our footage hostage.
Right.
Yeah, he's a guava man too.
There goes half the constituency.
There you go. Well, we tried, guys. Okay?
Yeah, we tried.
Coconut better and greater. Any place for that?
Okay.
I used to like Janelle. I used to like Janelle.
See why we always fuss it on. It makes sense.
I was a coconut man, by the way.
That's a pineapple man.
Greater thing in your mouth. I'm not guava. I could do a pineapple, but never coconut.
Yeah, I can't do coconut, man.
I can't do guava. I can't
Taking
do
your
guava.
teeth and I can't.
I can't do guava. I can't do pineapple because, you know.
So listen, final question. Me and Kyle have this thing. Like, for me, relationships is currency. And Kyle, knowledge is his currency. Every person that sits in the blue seat, we want to know what their form of currency is because currency comes in many forms.
Love.
It's not love. Okay, bye, bunny.
I was going to wear my love as my currency shop today too, you know. I was saying for the next
Love it. Can you expand on it?
Because I love the Virgin Islands, even in its worst state, in its best state, in its in-between state, I have this, let me use agape. That's the highest level of love. I have this agape type love, sacrificial love for my home, and that enables me to always remain in the fight, to always wake up each day, even if I'm tired or intolerant of certain stuff. I go and bitch for an hour and then like, you know, I love this place.
Even when it's sullying your name, even when it's dragging, you know.
Yeah.
You want to threaten your life.
Yeah, that keeps me going, and I'm able to lead with love. I play ball, I coach. I tell my players the matter. Actually, this season for my team right now, Boma's 18 elite team is love. Like, if you love the game, if you love your team, you're going to show up. Like, you're going to play ball.
Right.
So I think that anytime you do something, love is all encompassing. If I love the Virgin Islands, I don't want to embezzle money. If I love the Virgin Islands, I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to shortchange you. I don't want to not represent you. I don't want to steal from you. I don't want to negotiate in bad faith. Because I love the Virgin Islands, that takes me to a different level where I'm like, I will do anything necessary to ensure that the generation behind of me and those who are on their way out and those who are existing with me have a better quality of life. So I believe that anything that I do it from a place of love. And then all else, whatever benefits to come, that comes after the fact. But if I don't have a level of love, if my heart is not in the right place, then I just can't do the job.
All good.
You heard that bad one?
Well, yeah.
Love is my religion.
Yeah.
Ziggy.
I love that answer. I love that
I
answer.
love that answer.
We like I said, my most valuable form of currency is knowledge. As I feel like once you know something, you can't unknow it. You could take my legs, you could take my
But you could know it, but if you don't love, because you know what people Bonnie made off, he had know how to run the system, right? But because he didn't have love, he was out there just jacking up people's life savings.
True. It's not an either or question.
No, I know.
Right.
But that's why I chose love.
I feel you. I have some people that could love, but they don't know. And they can't do nothing with the love that they have to bring that change.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important. All of us don't have to be the same.
Yeah.
But when they're connected,
Right.
when yours is love, mine is knowledge, his is relationships, and we combine them like Captain Planet, you know what I mean? We're unstoppable. And that's...
But how you want relationships and you to be okay?
And he has pissing off people. I don't want to know that too, you know.
Have the right ones.
Like, jeez, I'm green, man.
Have the ones that matters.
Okay, deal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.
Yeah. I do.
And with that said, Janelle,
Thank you.
this was beautiful.
Yeah.
We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come sit down with us and talk. This was lovely. This was insightful. It was impactful. I really have enjoyed this conversation.
Definitely.
I appreciate your time.
Long awaited.
Long overdue. And I don't think it was a better time than now to have this conversation.
At home.
For real.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
in her alma mater's gym.
Exactly. Because the timeline for get Janelle on the podcast.
Yeah.
We could have done it too early.
Yeah.
And we weren't able to talk about we wouldn't have been able to talk about the foresight that you had to see some of the stuff that played out, the way they played out. You see what I'm saying?
I look bitter and angry at the time.
Yeah, I look crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She just might that she lose.
Yeah,
And then now you look like a prophet. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So divine time is everything for me. And I really appreciate your time and just your willingness to sit down with us. Me and my crazy co-host and chop it up.
Anytime.
Lovely. All right. Guys, that's a wrap. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Caribbean Currency. Share, like, and most importantly, subscribe. And we're going to see you in the next interview.
I want you to pay attention to politics.
Very important. What he said. Pay attention to politics. Don't let these people sell you a 6 for a 9.
Right.
And then you're out here looking crazy and complaining for stuff that you could have avoided if you had taken your part, do your part, and pay attention to what it is you needed to pay attention in and become involved. All right?
Right.
See you in the next episode. Peace.
Just need a big bag, I'ma get it so fast, I'm so fast. And when I get that money, I'ma make that last. Caribbean currency, we make that money last. I just need a